Welcome on to Bruce to 10 our top headlines tonight. More than 55 nations and members just agreed to boycott the next World Cup if FIFA plans. It's a plan. Just 24 hours after the FIFA president announced that he was selling it to a brand new organisation and brand new investors and has been approved by the 19th of September. We've got a report and we'll have more of what might happen to big major tournaments like the FIFA World Cup, the Club World Cup. Also tonight on the programme, droughts across the UK, massive wildfires across the Channel. And also, it's been confirmed that drought has affected parts of Wales tonight too. We'll have the latest there. Also, Manchester to get into difficulty in Sea of Essex. Also, on tonight's programme, the Bank of England issued is gone down, I think, by 3.75%. We'll have the latest economic figures with the Faisal Islam also tonight. Also tonight, Eddie Howe has left his role as Newcastle head coach. We will be with BBC looking off and joining Phil Larkey. Phil on the programme tonight, yes. Again, we'll have more. We've been covering the story about Rob Bush, his court sentence and court hearing. We'll have more from the police, as we'll hear from his sister. We'll have BBC London tonight with Harry Beedman. Harry on the programme tonight. Harry, good evening. There's more drought issues within the country. Suffolk Sea wildfires will be live there. And also, we'll be speaking to BBC weather reporter Ben Jones. We'll also have news for the latest news weather in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland too. Welcome to the news at 10. Our top headline tonight. FIFA and UEFA announced that 54 members and nations are set to boycott the next FIFA World Cup in 2030. It comes after they had to hold an emergency meeting with members and colleagues today. It was just less than 24 hours ago since the FIFA president announced that he was selling the organisation to a group of investors. The deadline: if all nations and everyone's agreed, they will have to have it all sorted and finalised by the 19th of September. If that's the case, there might not be a World Cup come for 2030. This 3.5 minute report from our sports correspondent Ollie Foster has the latest for us. Ollie.
is the ITV Evening News with Lucrezia Millerini.
Good evening. UEFA, European football's governing body, is tonight threatening to boycott the men's and women's World Cups over FIFA's plans to sell off the competition to private investors. In a damning statement, UEFA said the World Cup is not for sale and will oppose the controversial proposals with all its determination. The move, which followed an emergency meeting, was backed unanimously by all UEFA members, including the football associations of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. England's FAA says it stands shoulder to shoulder with UEFA, and the government also backed the move. It came days after FIFA President Gianni Infantino, who governs world football, offered all member associations £30 million if they backed his scheme. Here's our correspondent Geraint Vincent on the battle for the heart and soul of the beautiful game.
The World Cup is supposed to bring people and nations together, but such is its stunning commercial value, the football world has now been cleaved apart. At the centre of the schism is the exceptionally well-connected Gianni Infantino, the boss of FIFA, the man who runs the World Cup, and football's most ambitious administrator. He's got a new plan to generate yet more revenue by selling off a chunk of football's biggest event to private investors. Oh, no, you don't, say the football administrators.
You heard that right. Today, you can get these German-made autofocus glasses for just £7.50. This batch was originally destined for export to North America, but due to tariff
administrators of Europe. There are moments, says UEFA, when institutions are judged not by what they're prepared to accept, but by what they refuse to compromise. This is one of those moments. Some things are simply too important to sell. The FIFA World Cup belongs to football, it always will. And so long as Europe has a voice, it will never be for sale. UEFA's national teams, and that includes England, will not participate in any FIFA competition unless Mr. Infantino's proposal is abandoned in its entirety.
I spoke to the chair of the FA yesterday about this and the evening before, and it's very clear that there's huge disquiet in the FA at what has been landed on their mat, along with other associations. And I made the point that it's really important that the FA and other national bodies stand up for football, and I'm pleased to see that's what they're doing, and I'm sure that's what everyone associated with the FA will want to see happen.
Some of the giants of the footballing world then have taken a principled position, but for smaller countries, Mr. Infantino's deal might have a different look. FIFA is a money-making machine. The sale of TV rights, advertising and hospitality generated getting on for £10 billion in the last World Cup. The Infantino plan to sell a bit of that business will, he thinks, raise around £15 billion. And for FIFA member countries, that would mean an initial payout of around £30 million each.
It is a golden opportunity to turbocharge the development of the game globally.
It is a plan, says the FIFA president, to get money to the member countries which need it most. But critics worry that private investors will demand changes to the game to get greater returns. A half-hour-long half-time show might be just the start of it. And Spain! It needs to be passed by a majority vote of FIFA's 211 member countries. If it is, the next World Cup in both the men's and the women's game would have to be played without, among many others, the world champions. Geraint Vincent, ITV News.
Olivia Guthrie is at Wembley for us tonight. Olivia, what's been the reaction to this?
Well, in short, Lucrezia, solidarity with UEFA. When President Trump asked FIFA to overturn that red card of the American player and his wish was granted, there were rumblings of discontent, but nothing on this scale. The strength of those words from UEFA in Geraint's report there. They went on to say that these proposals were an abdication of FIFA's duty as custodians of world football. And today the FA have said that they stand shoulder to shoulder with their European colleagues and that they fully support the collective view. And that view from UEFA is that no team will participate in any of those World Games as long as these proposals remain alive. And there is meant to be a Women's World Cup qualifier here at Wembley in just 10 weeks' time between England and Greece. That game now up in the air. Gianni Infantino has set a deadline of August the 19th for members to vote on these proposals, but given the pace that this story is developing, I suspect that we're likely to hear more rather sooner than that.
All right, Olivia at Wembley, thank you. Well, moving on this evening, and a major wildfire is still burning out of control in Suffolk tonight as authorities declared it a major incident. The wildfire started late yesterday afternoon on Dunwich Heath, which is one of the county's eastern coast, and quickly spread. Dozens of people staying at a caravan and holiday park have been evacuated, with residents taking some of them in. It's about 3 miles from the Sizewell B nuclear power plant, but the county's fire chief says it's
What a day we're having at the Sports Desk. Some major breaking news now. It concerns UEFA, have been holding an emergency meeting this afternoon to discuss a coordinated response to Gianni Infantino's plan to sell off stakes in FIFA in the World Cup to private investors. Kaveh Solhekol is with me, as you can see. Kaveh, welcome along. What can you tell us about the meeting, the latest developments?
Well, UEFA have decided that if Gianni Infantino goes ahead with this proposal, they will boycott all FIFA tournaments. So UEFA saying to Gianni Infantino, enough is enough. We're not going to let you do this. And if you go ahead and do this, even if you think you have the votes to carry the day and go ahead with these controversial proposals, we will not in the future play in any of your tournaments. The next big tournament on the horizon is the Women's World Cup next summer in Brazil. So as things stand, no European countries would play in that tournament. And also, the next World Cup, 2030, Spain, Portugal, Morocco, European countries would not play in that tournament. This is UEFA basically showing that they're united and also that they totally and utterly oppose Gianni Infantino's proposal to sell off a stake in the World Cup.
If Infantino says, OK, I'll call your bluff, this would mean, to underscore at the end of the Women's World Cup, the end of the Men's World Cup, as we know it, potentially a rival breakaway?
Well, basically what it would mean is, it would mean the end of Gianni Infantino's proposals. Because if I'm an investor and I'm sitting in Wall Street and I'm looking at investing money and buying a 20% stake in FIFA's tournaments, why would I put money on the table and invest in tournaments that don't have European countries? Look at the World Cup that we've just had. 6 of the 8 quarter-finalists were from Europe. 3 of the semi-finalists were from Europe. The winners were from Europe. Why would anybody invest in Gianni Infantino's madcap scheme when it wouldn't have Spain, it wouldn't have France, it wouldn't have England, it wouldn't have Italy, it wouldn't have Germany? The proposal is dead in the water. But of course, we don't know what Gianni Infantino is going to do next, because he's sitting in his ivory tower in Zurich, being interviewed by people he employs, trying to sell this project. But if I was an investor waking up this morning in New York, reading this news about how UEFA have responded, I would be thinking, hey, maybe I need to invest in something else, because Gianni hasn't been able to deliver what he promised he was going to deliver.
And also, as well, we should stress the best teams at the moment on recent tournaments in women's football have been European as well, Spain and England in the last final. What does this mean in terms of the other associations, the other governing bodies, or is that moot now? It doesn't matter. Now UEFA have said this, it doesn't matter what the other...
Well, look, there's 6 confederations in world football. What we know is that UEFA absolutely, totally and utterly are not in favour of this and will do whatever it takes to stop it. What else do we know? We know, for instance, the Confederation CONCACAF that runs football in North and Central America. They seem to be against it as well. They released a statement yesterday saying, we're deeply concerned, we're disappointed that this was all done in secret. we've had the Asian Football Confederation, who are normally rock solidly behind Gianni Infantino, come out and say, we're deeply concerned as well. Why weren't we consulted? So Gianni Infantino is losing support from confederations, but I still think there are plenty of football associations around the world, remember there's 211 of them, who will say, Gianni has quadrupled the amount of money we get from FIFA, and he's now coming along and saying in January we can have an extra $20 million, and going forward we can have triple as much money as we're getting. A lot of them will say, wow, this is great, we're going to sign up to it. But it doesn't matter if they sign up to it or not, because without UEFA, without European countries, you cannot have a proper World Cup. And if this develops into a serious split between UEFA and FIFA, which I probably don't think it will, you could also have the potential on the horizon where UEFA think, look, we already do a great job of running the Champions League. We do a great job of running the Euros. Why don't we set up our own version of the World Cup? And we can invite Argentina, Brazil, the best sides in Africa, the best sides in Asia to play in that as well.
But what does that prospect, where does it all leave Gianni Infantino? Because widely perceived it's going to be processional next year, that he gets reinstated as president. Could there be any way now that people are galvanised to oppose him? Or as you mentioned, the 211 federations, does that mean that regardless of what you...
Yeah, more bad news for FIFA, more bad news for Gianni Infantino, because today in Miami, the North and Central American Football Confederation, they're called CONCACAF, and they have 41 members. They've been holding an...
Today was the last...
To the left. Take it back now, y'all. One hop just raised once more.
Suit. World Cup glory 60 years on. What happened when Generation 1960 president? This could yet prove from this. Plans to sell stakes in the World Cup is growing.
This is ITV News at 10 with Julie Etchingham.
Good evening. The groundswell of opposition against plans to sell stakes in the World Cup is growing tonight. First, UEFA's 55 European nations unanimously vowed to boycott future tournaments in protest at Gianni Infantino's private equity proposal. Now, CONCACAF, the governing body for North America, Central America and the Caribbean, says its 41 members have also voiced their own deep concerns. Urgent meetings have been held all day, the fractured football world assessing its options since details of the secret plan emerged earlier this week. Some things, declared UEFA, are simply too important to sell. Their objection extended to direct criticism of FIFA and its leadership. And with pressure now piling on its president, this could yet prove for Mr. Infantino a spectacular own goal.
No matter who you are,
bringing the nations of the world together is usually something FIFA likes to boast about. But 11 days since the last World Cup final, it is poised to divide them. At the centre of the schism is the exceptionally well-connected Gianni Infantino, the boss of FIFA and football's most ambitious administrator. He's got a new plan to generate yet more revenue by selling off a chunk of football's biggest event to private investors. Oh, no, you don't, say the football administrators of Europe. There are moments, says UEFA, when institutions are judged not by what they're prepared to accept, but by what they refuse to compromise. This is one of those moments. Some things are simply too important to sell. The FIFA World Cup belongs to football, it always will. So long as Europe has a voice, it will never be for sale. UEFA's national teams, and that includes England, will not participate in any FIFA competition unless Mr. Infantino's proposal is abandoned in its entirety.
It's really important that the FA and other national bodies stand up for football, and I'm pleased to see that's what they're doing, and I'm sure that's what everyone associated with the FA will want to see happen.
Some of the giants of the footballing world then have taken a principled position, but for smaller countries, Mr. Infantino's deal might have a different look. FIFA is a money-making machine. The sale of TV rights, advertising and hospitality generated getting on for £10 billion in the last World Cup. The Infantino plan to sell a bit of that business will, he thinks, raise around £15 billion. And for FIFA member countries, that would mean an initial payout of around £30 million each. The first event to be affected by a boycott would be the next Women's World Cup, supposed to be played in Brazil next year.
The stand that UEFA have made, I think it makes sense. I mean, obviously, ultimately, UEFA are a European governing body, and UEFA and FIFA are completely separate. Now, the thing that I don't like is this might affect the Women's World Cup in Brazil next year, because ultimately, for England, Spain, those types of teams, and France are part of UEFA. So that's when, but hopefully, it won't get to that point.
Infantino says his plan will get money to the member countries which need it most, but critics worry that private investors will demand changes to the game to get greater returns. A half-hour-long half-time show might be just the start of it. It needs to be passed by a vote of FIFA's 211 member countries, and if it is, the next World Cup in both the men's and the women's game would have to be played without, among many others, the world champions.
Europe, of course, is home to many of the biggest footballing nations. 6 of the 8 teams that reached the quarter-finals earlier this month are UEFA members. Yet, despite representing 55 associations in all, that accounts for just a quarter of FIFA's membership. Tonight, they've been joined by CONCACAF, as we mentioned, covering North and Central America, in rejecting the proposals, but others have not yet followed suit. The Confederation, representing 46 members in Asia and Australasia, has spoken critically, saying FIFA's actions appear to undermine the very foundations of continental football. And there are some significant supporter groups, including those representing South America, who seem to be behind Infantino's plans. And Africa's football body, they are seen as big backers of the FIFA president. And with 54 members, their stance carries almost the same weight as UEFA's. Well, Garant is here to talk further about this. And there seems to be a real movement building against this plan, but a big split forming too. So where is this leaving FIFA and indeed its president tonight?
Well, a boycott of the World Cup by Europe's giants just seems unthinkable, doesn't it? But for that not to happen now, there's got to be some kind of climb down or reversal or defeat for Gianni Infantino. And he's a man who's used to doing whatever he has to do to get what he wants. He cozied up to Vladimir Putin, awarded Donald Trump a peace prize. He's normally pretty politically astute, but he's taken this enormous gamble here. He said to the member countries, approve my plan by September the 19th, take the money, and he's hoped that gets in the way. Well, UEFA has got in the way today in a big way. They've held an emergency meeting and they've played their biggest card immediately. So even if Infantino wins this vote in FIFA now, is a World Cup without the European countries as attractive an investment opportunity for whoever his backers are? No, of course it's not. The other factor at play here, Julie, is a long-standing power struggle between FIFA and UEFA. UEFA's got cash cows of its own. It makes about £3 or £4 billion every year from the Champions League, a competition between Europe's biggest and best clubs. That revenue is threatened by Infantino's other big...
There is more to Argos.
Protecting the integrity of the beautiful game, they're protecting their bottom line as well.
Well, some way to go yet to Garant. Thank you very much indeed for that. Now to the wildfire in Suffolk.
Next tonight, let me know where parts of the UK are including drought, affecting farmers, crop, food across the UK because of the massive wildfire has spread across Suffolk. When it comes after a wildfire raging near the Sewell B nuclear plant on Suffolk's coast could burn for another 36 hours. Officials have warned in France, Bay, and firefighters have reported progress in the battle. Major warfare following the latest. The major fire in the Suffolk nuclear plant grows. That's why wind makes this very difficult to predict. It's a massive deal. It's confirmed for us after droughts were confirmed for 8 parts of the UK. We will come on to Wales in a minute. We will speak to our Wales correspondent Hugo Griffiths in a minute and talk about the Wales impact on drought. But first, to the Suffolk incident.
Still burning tonight despite the best efforts of more than 100 firefighters on the scene since a major incident was declared last night. Already more than 100 acres have been scorched, including parts of a nature reserve. Rangers there fear the heathland could take more than a decade to recover. A holiday park was evacuated. The nearby Sizewell B nuclear power station was monitoring the situation. But Suffolk Fire and Rescue Service say for now their tactics are working and the fire is stable.
A front of flames, fanned by wind, feeding on tinder-like heathland. As the fire headed towards homes, evacuations began. Those staying at a nearby caravan and holiday park told to leave at speed.
He came round in his car and he got out the car and said, quickly, get what you can and get out. And so that's what we did.
And what was that like to hear those words?
It was horrifying, and I have to say we got the most amazing lodge with a sea view on the cliff top, and it's just heartbreaking.
We were given about a half-hour warning that we might need to evacuate. We evacuated to here, had a cup of tea given to us, and a lovely couple came along and said, come in to stay at our guest house overnight. So that's what we did.
Throughout last night, they fought to keep it under control. It's not just the size of the fire, but the difficulty of the terrain. Uneven ground, few access points, and intense flames on several sides. The white dome at the top of your screen, 3 miles from the fire, is the Sizewell B nuclear power station. There is an emergency plan, but the current belief is that flames will not reach it.
The terrain and land between us, the fire, and Sizewell B and C means that it's not a significant fire spread concern. So at the moment, Sizewell B and C are being monitored. We're in consultation with them, but we're not worried about fire spread in that direction.
Smoke billows across miles of this stretch of the Suffolk coast. An area the size of 210 football pitches remains on fire. It's not just people, their homes and businesses at risk.
Minsmere is the real jewel in the RSPB crown.
Dunwich Heath is a wildlife zone of international importance.
More species of plant and animal being recorded at RSPB Minsmere than any other of the 200 RSPB reserves in the UK. The area that's caught fire yesterday evening is heathland, similar to this habitat behind us, really important for critically rare wildlife, species such as nightjars, Dartford warblers, woodlarks, nightingales, that all breed in this habitat, and this fire is devastating the bushes and the shrubs that they nest and feed in.
The fire began just hours after vast parts of the country were declared in drought. This is set to be the driest July on record. A land parched and now scorched.
And Sam, it's in the village of Westleton, close to the fire tonight. And Sam, it's continuing to burn. What is the latest on the efforts to extinguish it?
Well, Julie, as you saw, these are really tricky conditions. A bone-dry July and multiple heat waves has turned forest and heathland into tinder. The fire service says it expects that it will be at least another 48 hours until the fire is out, and despite their best effort, local communities have gone to help out, from volunteering here and providing food and drink to people opening their doors to complete strangers, allowing them to stay for as long as they need. Around 120 firefighters are tackling the fire, including crews from London. They currently say that the fire is stable and that they believe that their tactics are working. The Prime Minister has promised all the support that the fire service needs. What hasn't been established at this moment in time is what started the fire, but conditions like these, global warming, rising temperatures, a lack of rain has created conditions ripe for flames to spread.
Indeed, Sam, thank you very much indeed. Well, the hot and dry weather has continued to fuel wildfires across Europe. In tinderbox conditions, flames have spread in Germany, Turkey and Greece. But Spanish firefighters have made progress in tackling fires near Madrid and Valencia. And authorities in France today allowed 84,000 residents to return home, or at least to return to what is left of them, whole neighbourhoods having been reduced to charred ruins.
Hurricane-force winds have fanned the flames on the Greek island of Crete. 2 firefighters have already died. Through acrid smoke, sometimes the only chance of rescue has been from the sea. 8,000 have been forced to leave their homes, tourists told to take shelter.
A little bit scared, because that's not usual for us.
It's a terrible situation, but yeah, we will handle it, and hopefully we can tomorrow get back to the hotel, maybe.
Whilst they're used to wildfires here, the Greek Prime Minister admitted there are difficult days ahead. 90 fires are alight in Crete. In Spain, similar scenes. Fires raged once more overnight north of Valencia, whilst the military were drafted in to protect Zamora in the west. Near Madrid, the Prime Minister has said the national emergency is ended. Now the rebuild must begin. In France, whilst George Clooney was forced to leave his home in the southeast, in Gironde, cooler weather has finally brought relief. Shop owners clearing ash before reopening their doors. Today, we're thankful to the firefighters, she said, so we can finally get vital medicines to our patients.
Everything seems okay.
84,000 evacuees like Sanachit have been told it's now safe to return home.
I feel relieved to find my house still here. It's a good feeling, you know.
But not everybody is going to have a house to come home to. This is the village of La Porge. As you can see, it borders the forest where the flames swept from, leaving more than 200 homes completely destroyed, and much of the village turned into rubble and ash. It will be a long road to recovery. Huge swathes are still without people or power, and every week tourists stay away cost this region tens of millions of pounds. With holiday season in full flight, the race is on to protect Europe's other tourist hotspots. Airdrops, the best way to defend Turkey's tinder-dry forests, whilst in northern Portugal, tractors have been commandeered as crews battle around the clock. Martin Stew, News at 10, Bordeaux.
Well, back here, as Sam said earlier, much of Britain is tonight officially in drought. Forecasters say replenishing the country's water supplies will take widespread and crucially sustained rainfall. Drought status has now been extended to cover the whole of Wales. It has seen just 8% of the rain it would typically expect in each July, and almost half of England's population are also experiencing drought conditions affecting vast swathes of central, eastern and southern England.
Our countryside has been bleached after weeks without...
We're going to move into Wales, is the area now of drought.
Good evening. We start with breaking news tonight, and the whole of Wales is... Hello, good evening. We start with breaking news tonight, and the whole of Wales is now officially in the grip of a drought. In the last few hours, Natural Resources Wales confirmed drought status after updated figures showed we're on course to have the driest July since records began nearly 200 years ago. Our reporter Lewis Rhys-Jones is in Llandyssil in Ceredigion for us tonight. Lewis, the impact of this dry summer really being felt where you are, but now all of Wales is in drought.
Yes, indeed, John. Nosothatio. We are here at a picturesque-looking Teifi, which is just one river of many across the country, with extremely low water levels at the moment. To give you an idea, we're actually standing on the riverbed itself and had quite a climb down from the bank to my right. That is how low the levels are here at the moment. And while we have seen the odd spell of cloud in West Wales today, it's broken out into sun, no rain to be seen again. And now, as we know, within the last few hours, it's been declared that all of Wales is officially in drought. If we look at some new figures, because they show that Wales received just 8% of its long-term average rainfall for the month. It's set to be, with that in mind, the driest July in 190 years. Natural Resources Wales have also said they're very concerned with the drying riverbeds like this one, because there are reports of fish in distress, but also algae. You might not be able to make it out, but from my eyes, the water here is looking very green indeed, which is why now NRW have declared a drought status.
It's worth looking at a range of factors, such as, the water levels in the river, the soil moisture as well as sort of levels of groundwater, and actually those reports and evidence of impacts on sectors such as agriculture. So we take all those things into careful consideration before we declare drought.
Lewis, I guess the question people will have tonight, does a national drought status mean that there's a national hose pipe ban? Because there is one where you are, isn't there?
Yeah, I don't think... Well, the answer is not yet, John, but I think it's fair to say we'll have to keep an eye on that one and wait and see. But you mentioned it there. Ceredigion and West Wales, much of West Wales, has been under a hose pipe ban for nearly a fortnight now. If we take a look at this map, we can see it affects around 33,000 homes, covering large parts of Ceredigion, as well as North Carmarthenshire and North Pembrokeshire. What does a hose pipe ban mean then? Well, it gives water companies like Dŵr Cymru the power to fine people up to £1,000 if they are seen breaking the rules. Naturally, that's caused a lot of frustration locally, but given that we're in one of the areas worst affected by this very dry summer, just 20 miles further west, the Wales Drought Liaison Group met to discuss the worries and the ongoing challenges we're now facing across the nation.
Okay, Lewis.
The supplies are there, but it's the infrastructure of the pipes that are, there's a lot of miles of it and they're in need of upgrading. So it's the nature of the pipes here that mean that we're getting the burst pipes. It's also to do with climate change, driving changing conditions that our system wasn't designed for, and that's a particular issue in Ceredigion, Penfro.
Finally, we've heard a lot about wildfires recently, but that is an ongoing concern. Are we going to see more wildfires as a result of this ongoing drought? I think it's not often we say this, John, but most of the country are desperate for heavy rainfall.
OK, Lewis Rhys-Jones in Llandyssil, thanks very much indeed. Next, another developing story, and there is a serious incident in Taffs Well on the outskirts of Cardiff tonight. We understand a number of homes have been evacuated after flooding, and there's a major emergency service response there right now.
We've got this quick 2-minute report from our Wales correspondent, Hugo Griff's report.
The news with Jane Hill. It seems that it's not paying off. There are 96 member associations.
And got our late supper.
Get into our car. 11:30, there was a Dunwich Heath on the Suffolk, pouring upwards, choking the sky.
Side and covers the firefighters tonight. Jane.
Know how it or Infantino will react to this, or
if indeed he will survive it. What is clear is that world football's governing body is in crisis tonight. Jane.
Jane Dougal, thanks very much, our sports correspondent with the latest. Now, our other main story, there are still more than 100 firefighters tonight trying to bring a wildfire in Suffolk under control after a major incident was declared and dozens of people were forced to leave their homes and caravans. The Prime Minister has promised that the county's fire and rescue service will have all the support it needs. The wildfire broke out on Dunwich Heath last night and covers an area equivalent to 210 football pitches. Suffolk's fire chief says there is currently no risk to the nuclear power station Sizewell B, which is just a few miles away. Navchez Johal has the latest.
Smoke, clawing upwards, choking the sky. More than 24 hours since the fire began, this landscape is still aflame. It began on Dunwich Heath on the Suffolk coast at around 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and by late evening people were being evacuated from their homes and the nearby caravan park.
11:30, there was a bang on the door, and we were told to leave. No time to pick up anything, just get out straight away. So we did get into our car, and we drove here, which is about 2.5 miles. And we've been here all night in the car.
We were just having a late supper, and he knocked on the door and he said, "Prepare to evacuate." So we put the supper in the bin and got our few bits and pieces and left.
Archie was asked by a firefighter to help with the rescue effort.
Knocking everyone's doors, wake people up. Had to get this woman and her 2 babies out of bed and get their car packed. When I was running around that last bit, knocking on people's doors, the smoke was so thick I could only see about 5 feet in front of me.
Evacuees were brought to the nearby village hall and were housed overnight by local residents in Westleton. Barry had 3 couples and 3 dogs staying in his home, as they'll do again tonight.
We've just had discussions about them staying this evening, which they're all quite pleased about because they have various bags and all over the place. So they're pleased they got a solid base for at least another evening, waiting for more updates. But yes, we're doing the best we can.
Meanwhile, firefighters tried to contain the blaze. At its height, 120 of them and 18 fire engines were on site dealing with the fire, which has affected 150 hectares, the size of more than 200 football pitches.
It's unprecedented, really, for Suffolk Fire and Rescue to go to 18 fire engines. I've been to some significant incidents, but I don't think I've ever had a fire that I've had to deal with that has had 120 firefighters on scene. It is very unusual.
The Prime Minister says the fire service will get all the support it needs.
I will make sure that Suffolk Fire and Rescue Service have all of the support, the mutual aid from other services that they need, and any other resources that need to be brought to bear. It is a serious incident, but we are watching it very closely indeed.
The fire service says there's currently no risk to the nearby nuclear power station Sizewell B, but the fire has also spread to an area of a local nature reserve next to Dunwich Heath, endangering rare wildlife. The RSPB says it could be up to 25 years until their habitat is restored. But the fire service has described it as miraculous that a blaze of this scale has so far not resulted in any casualties and only minor damage to a building. But they can't say yet. Continue to tackle it, as they will all through the night. Now, we're told that they are making good progress and that additional fire engines are coming up from London to give them a hand. But as you can see, roads to Dunwich remain closed, though we have just seen 2 fire engines go past in the last couple of minutes. And the fire service says that its response to the fire will continue for at least another 48 hours, and that changing winds make it difficult to predict how it may spread.
Navtej, thanks so much. Well, drought was declared today across the whole of Wales following the news.
Next, the Bank of England now. Oh, it's been confirmed today by the Bank of England.
It's the car clock that erases car scratches instantly. Look, no edits, no Photoshop. We just had...
The Bank of England has held interest rates at 3.75% for the 5th time in a row. In a minute, we will get to the latest with our UK economics expert, Faisal Hassan, but right now we're just going to get an update on the situation.
The
briefing. So what happens is journalists go in and we have a look at both the decision, but yeah, we just had the briefing. So what happens is journalists go in and we have a look at both the decision, but also kind of just as importantly these days, you get what's known as the Monetary Policy Report, which is basically the latest set of bank forecasts. And that matters because, well, right now in particular, we are all trying to work out what is going to be the path for inflation, where is growth going in the future, and then, pertaining to that, what does the Bank of England do? And of course, their job is to try to keep inflation as close as possible to 2%. It is above target. It's basically been above target, give or take, the last 5 years. So, when you're thinking about the cost of living crisis, that is a big part of it. And a lot of people have been wondering, will the bank raise interest rates? They're at 3.75% at the moment. As you already know, and you've reported, they have not done that. And it's worth just underlining, it wasn't that long ago. So after we saw the events that we've seen in the Middle East, after we saw the attacks on Iran at the end of February, oil prices obviously rose sharply. There was an expectation, quite a widespread expectation, that at this point, so July, end of July, start of August, the Bank of England would be raising interest rates. A lot of people had thought that was going to be baked in. Well, they haven't done that. They've left interest rates on hold at 3.75%. The 9 people on the committee, so there's 9 people on the committee, 3 of them did vote for a hike. So if you're kind of looking at the Kremlinology, trying to work out, are certain members going to vote in a different way the next time? You'd say last time around it was 2 people who voted for a hike. This time it was 3 people. So that seems to imply that there is a bit of momentum building for people thinking interest rates should be higher. However, when you look at both what markets expect and what economists expect, most of them think that interest rates are basically going to be on hold. And as I say, that is quite a different story from the story that it looked like only a few months ago, when a lot of people thought at this point the bank is going to be raising interest rates. They might have to do it in the following months as well. Well, at the moment that is not the case. A few other things worth saying. They've looked at their inflation forecast and they think inflation peaks at around 3.2% towards the end of the year and then starts to come down. But as I say, for those families out there who are very conscious, in a way that we haven't really been conscious for a long time, about prices, about the impact on your pockets, about what that means. This is, going to be scant consolation, I think, given that inflation at 3.2% is still well above their target of 2%. But yeah, the big story is rates on hold, 3.75%, not a massive shift in terms of the tone from the Bank of England. They are still basically watching the economy, more to the point watching what's happening.
Close to $70 a barrel.
Hi everybody, welcome to the July Monetary Policy Report press conference. With us today are Claire Lombardelli, Deputy Governor for Monetary Policy, Dave Ramsden, Deputy Governor for Markets and Banking, and the Governor, Andrew Bailey. Andrew will begin with opening remarks and then we'll turn to questions.
Well, thank you, Katie. The situation in the Middle East remains volatile, and as a result, so do global energy prices. Oil prices in the 5 months since the conflict began have on average been almost 50% higher than in the months before it, and higher global energy prices will push up on inflation over the coming months. Set against that, the underlying disinflation of the UK economy has continued. Economic activity is subdued and the labour market is soft. There is little as yet to suggest that higher energy prices are becoming embedded in broad-based inflationary pressures in the UK economy, although we cannot draw too much comfort from that at this stage. Today we've kept bank rate at 3.75%. Monetary conditions have tightened for households and businesses since the conflict began. We see that, for example, in higher mortgage rates. And that tightening reflects the underlying economics. In particular, the expected increase in inflation from higher energy prices, which needs to be considered alongside whether the underlying disinflation in the domestic economy will continue. We will monitor the situation carefully and stand ready to adjust our stance as the evidence and our judgments on the outlook evolve. It is our job to ensure that inflation gets back to the 2% target and stays there, and that is what we will do. So I will now set out the outlook for inflation in further detail before turning to the projections and scenarios that have informed the Monetary Policy Committee's decision today. Chart 1, although we seem to have chart 2 in front of us at the moment, Well, chart 1, when it appears, I hope it will, shows how the near-term outlook for inflation has shifted in recent months as events in the Middle East have evolved. 12-month CPI inflation has fallen by 0.7 percentage points since March to 2.6% in the latest data for June. That is 0.4 percentage points, oh here's chart 1, lower than we expected in April's monetary policy report. Inflation has been lower across a wide range of goods and services, not least food. The underlying disinflation process has been offset by higher energy prices following the conflict in the Middle East. Motor fuel prices are currently contributing 0.6 percentage points. In our latest near-term projection, that's the dashed blue line, higher energy prices push inflation up to a little above 3% by the end of the year. Energy prices remain highly volatile, however.
Alright.
Electricity usage went down, even when you don't think so.
You really think that?
I know.
Oh, but you know a lot these days. There you go, before you wait your knickers.
And then it's time to finish off with the tablet as well.
Yes, I
Your
will.
laptop.
And I'll bring it through in a second for you. So, the situation with Bank of England at 3.75%, a UK economic expert, Faisal Islam, has given this. Faisal, good evening. Hello, good evening, Keegan. As you heard from a reporters in the press conference about the Bank of England going down inflation by 3.5%. It's a massive, massive problem for energy bills, crops, foods. It's all due to the fact of the war in Iran and the Middle East is conflict between both countries. Iran and it's not helping the situation develop. The increases of charts for news conference there this afternoon. I've got one chart that shows the stability and growth of the economy needs to happen because we've got a new chancellor and the new chancellor Joe Healy, so hopefully Joe will set out his plans in the upcoming budget in the autumn later this year, but the economy has decreased at a low significant rate and it needs to be solved. Household bills, electricity has got to be paid for, but the economy rate suggested by the Bank of England at 3.75% is not a good look. Up and down this country, it has to be solved. Hopefully the issue will be sorted shortly, and you can see in one more time. I'm going to show you that graph. This time 3 months ago, our economy and the Bank of England was on track for good statistics, but now 3 or 4 months later, the new government in the Bank of England set out its new statistics and stats at 3.75%. It's worse than it was back 4 months ago when we reviewed it 4 months ago, when we had militaries in charge of the economy, growth, bills, stock, food waste and stuff like that. It's not a good look for the economy at all in any stretch here tonight. Okay, a UK economics expert, Faisal Islam. Just going back to the drought in Wales, because we heard in Hal Griffiths' report what is the situation in Wales tonight. A very good evening, Keegan, and welcome here to a reservoir lake in a park here in North Wales tonight, where the whole part of Wales are under drought. 7% of water of rainfall has fallen here tonight, and there's a massive increase. We can now hear from our BBC weather expert on Wales development. This is what she said.
Get out!
You ready, news presenter?
Get out. You're not supposed to be in there. It's no wonder he gets annoyed with you now, go away. So, well, because it's complicated. What? Without that, just checking to see if you have to. Come on, sweetheart, I love you. Have you just got your pants on?
Yeah.
Okay, that's rude.
Oh my god, hon.
No. I haven't got all day.
I have got all day.
But you already knew that.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. You liar.
I'm not a liar.
We're gonna find out, aren't we?
No, not really.
Ow.
Ah.
I'll do ya.
Come on then. Big eye man. No. Well, at least be scary.
Ah. That's even worse, isn't it?
No, it's a bit ridiculous.
Ah. That's so shit, innit?
Can we just do this?
Go for me.
Oh, thanks. That's very nice of you. Probably the one I got always said that camera filming.
I'm coming. We're here from the booster office. Expecting. Like I say, all pathways are under. Oh, what?
Just pushing you over.
So all pathways are under drought. It's affecting crop farmers' food growth. This is what I spoke to one farmer. This is what it told us. It's frustrating, it's annoying because we need to prepare for autumn winter for food growth, for fresh fruits and vegetables, and in order to cooperate with the droughts for the big effect. And we hope biggest often is growth because it's a massive issue for us farmers who try and get soft potatoes, vegetables, fruits, strawberries, blueberries, all start on very hard because it's a drought, and it's a massive impact because wood shortage needs to be solved so we can get back on track for the rest of summer. You can see the impact is having people who what's happening with people in the UK here, but you can see what's happening here. It's a devastating issue. Here you go, Griffiths there. Right, that is it from us and for the whole team. I am going to be around. I'm going to be back with the BBC News at 10, part 2 tomorrow night. We can join BBC Look North, Philip Larkey with the issue film on the programme. More on Rob Bush. This is called Place We hear from his sister and the police. And we can join Aaron with BBC London Evening News. There's more on Suffolk drought issues across all parts of the world, and England will have the latest. I'll see you in the morning for part 2 of News at 10. Bye. See you later. I'll see you for part 2 in the morning. It's time to join Philip on Look North and Aaron on BBC London. Bye bye.